Next slide. So as Rob said, one of the keys to a good visualization output from Revit is good use of materials. But for many people, materials is still a little bit of a dark art. So we thought we'd spend a few minutes at the start of this session, this meeting, just talking through some of the basics, a quick crash course in Revit materials, what they are, how you create them and amend them. We'll look at understanding material appearance assets, so what they are and how they're associated with Revit materials. And then how to organise and share materials and assets with others in your organisation by building up libraries. I'm going to do this by means of a video demo, just a short demo video that I'm going to try and keep up with the commentary. Okay. Does that play? Right, so there's a number of ways to apply materials to objects, by families, type, or by categories, and by using this paint tool where you can just search for a material, find any material in your model and apply it direct to a surface. So we'll look in the material browser to get an understanding of materials. So here you see all the materials that are currently available in your model. You can search for materials here using keywords. You can select a material and you use the material editor button down here to expand it and see more information on these tabs. So the identity tab carries attributes such as the name, description, some keywords for searches and some product information. The graphics tab is used to determine how an object with this material applied to it is going to be seen in Revit. So it could be the shaded view or in projection, such as a plan and elevation, or when the material's cut and you can apply these fill patterns to it. Then we get up to 3 asset tabs. And the appearance tab is the one we're going to focus on today because that's the one that relates to the visual rendered properties, but there's also these physical and thermal tabs which carry additional information which relate to things like analysis, for example. The important thing to note about these assets is that they're a separate entity from the materials. So they're stored separately and they're assigned to the materials. And any given asset can be assigned to multiple materials. It's important to understand this because if, for instance, as many have found, you duplicate a material and you rename it, and then you go and change properties of that asset, for example, in this example, the appearance asset, what you'll notice is that you also affect the original material. There we go, and this is because both of these materials are using the same material asset. So let's reset that. So what you have to do is replace the asset in the material with a different one. So after duplicating the material, you want to click on this Replace Asset icon, which will open the asset browser. And in here, you get access to an extensive library of Autodesk's assets out of the box, including these appearance assets. Now, assets are categorized and they have a type, which we'll come back to shortly. And you can also see which assets are currently found in your model file. They're listed here under the document assets. So you can search for assets using keywords that we put in on that identity tab. And then you can replace an asset by clicking this Replace Asset icon and apply it to the material. So if you need to make a new asset, what you need to do is duplicate by using this Duplicate Asset button. And you'll see that the name will change, so it will append a number onto the end. And what that does is it distinguishes it as a new asset that you can now go and make changes to. So now you have a new appearance asset in your document. And when you go back to the asset browser, you find your new asset in amongst the document assets. There it is. So how do you share this with others in your organisation so that they don't have to go through the same work that you just did to achieve that asset? So down here in the bottom left, any moment now, so here in the bottom left you'll see options to create a new library which you can save somewhere on your shared network, and from then on you and others can open it as an existing library. And once your shared library is loaded into the asset browser, you can use assets from it, and you can load them into your model. But you can also easily add assets from your model, from the document assets, into the shared library. So these can then be used in other Revit materials. And you should add them to a category to keep them organised. In a similar way, you can add the new Revit materials that you've made into a shared library of materials. So, you see here we can add them to a favourites, but more usefully, down here on the bottom left of the material browser, you see an option to create a new library, which again you save somewhere on your organisation's shared network. Then anyone on your network can open an existing library to load it into their material browser. Use this button at the top here to show the library panel, and then on the left here of this library panel you see a couple of Autodesk's out of the box libraries which are quite comprehensive, but you can also see your own libraries, and you can add materials from that library into your Revit model. And likewise you can add materials from your model back into your material library, and then others can use that in their models as well. So of course once you've got your new material you can go and apply it. Okay, so whilst we're at it, there's a couple more things that are worth noting about appearance assets. Firstly, you'll notice that there are many different settings for refining your appearance assets which will enhance your visuals. So we saw earlier that there are various types of appearance asset, and you'll notice here that these have different sets of properties available to them. For instance, if you have a glazing, that's got some different properties from metal, which has got different properties here again from wood and masonry and so on. So when you duplicate materials to create new ones, you need to try and pick one that's as similar as possible so that you get those same sets of properties as the new material you're trying to make. Okay. Now you'll also notice that some materials have a texture image applied to them. So we can have a quick look at how these work. So to change or modify a texture image, you click on the image preview here to open the texture editor. And then you click on the image name to access its source. So it's worth knowing this location on your local drive because it's where Autodesk stores its extensive selection of out-the-box image textures. And you'll see these 1, 2, 3 folders. They're essentially the same images but at different resolutions. So you get a medium, you get a low, medium and high resolution to the same texture images. It's a good idea also to save any new images that you acquire into a shared location so that others can access them when they're working on the same model. Otherwise, if for instance you just save them on your local drive, like a texture image that you've got from say Google Images, then others working on the model might see it as a missing image. Okay, so back in here you get a few extra controls such as scale and position. And then finally you'll see that some material types have an option for a relief pattern, what we used to call bump mapping. So I could go into much more detail, but this basic summary should give you a good starting point on using, creating and amending materials and understanding material assets so that you can start getting decent visualization outputs out of them.